I saw you when your heart grew weary of searching for answers, when your mind raced in circles, trying to understand the reason for so much pain. I saw you fall silent, not for lack of faith, but for exhaustion. I saw when you stopped arguing with me because you felt that my answers weren't coming. And at that moment, when you believed I had left you alone, that was exactly when I embraced you even tighter. I was there, on the floor of your room, when your voice faltered in prayer. I was there when your eyes stared at the ceiling, unable to form a word. I saw the weariness that overwhelmed your soul. I saw when you no longer wanted to fight, when you thought that losing control was the same as losing me. But what you didn't know is that the silence that frightened you was the place where I spoke most. Because while you were searching for answers, I was teaching you to rest. When everything seemed still, the entire sky moved for you. While you believed that no one saw your struggle, I observed every detail, every tear you hid so as not to appear weak. Not one of them fell without me collecting it. No thought of surrender went unnoticed before me. I saw you wanting to disappear from the world. I saw you look inside and find no light at all. But it was there, in that emptiness that frightened you, that I began to rebuild your structure. Because there are times when I need to disconnect you from everything so that you can finally hear me. The noise of fear, comparison, and human expectations prevented you from realizing that I was always there. I did not abandon you. I only silenced the world so that your soul would remember my voice. When everything seemed cold, I was by your side, warming what little faith remained in you. When you thought no one understood you, I understood every cry that didn't come from your mouth. When despair whispered that you were alone, it was my hand that prevented you from falling completely. Nothing escaped my gaze. I saw when your friends distanced themselves, and you called it rejection. I saw when your heart hardened so as not to feel pain anymore. And even then, I did not judge you, because I knew it was the way you found to survive. But now I want you to understand, you were not forgotten. You were observed with love. I waited patiently until your heart grew tired of running from me. You thought the silence was punishment, but it was care. While you blamed yourself, I protected you. While you thought life was crumbling, I was simply calling you back to what's essential. Your name has never ceased to be spoken in heaven. I saw you give up, but that's when I decided to start again with you. Now I want you to know, what seemed like the end to you was just the pause I needed to take to lift you up again. Every emptiness you feel is a space I am filling with what comes from above. I saw you stop trying to understand, and that's when I could finally act without your resistance. Comment: I know that God saw me in the silence. Let this confession become the seal of your faith. Because when you acknowledge that you have been seen, the whole heavens move again. I was never absent. When silence surrounded you and the sound of your prayers seemed not to pierce the ceiling, I was there, attentive to every breath. I saw when your body grew weary of fighting and your heart, without understanding, began to doubt. But there is not a single second in which my eyes stray from you. What you called abandonment was the way I used to protect you from what you could not see. While you were asking for signs, I was creating paths. While you were demanding answers from me, I was keeping away the danger that was walking towards you. Every time the phone didn't ring, it was my hand preventing the wrong voice from confusing you. Every door that closed before you was my way of hiding you in shelter. Because there are situations that my love prevents. Not because I don't love you, but because I love you too much to allow you to destroy yourself trying to save what is already dead. Silence was the shield that surrounded you when the words of others hurt you. You thought I was distant, but what you called distance was my cloak enveloping you. The noise of your doubts prevented you from perceiving the sound of my care. And even when you stopped calling on me, my spirit was still by your side, whispering peace amidst your fears. I saw the nights you cried, too weak even to pray. I saw when you hid your face in the pillow, believing no one would understand the pain that was breaking you inside. And yet, I was there, collecting each tear and transforming what was once despair into relief. Nothing went unnoticed. None of your thoughts went unanswered, even if the answer was silence. There is a time when the sky speaks quietly, because there are truths that the heart only understands in stillness. While the world demanded haste, I enveloped you in stillness. While your mind screamed that you were alone, I surrounded you with angels so that nothing could touch you. There are battles that can only be won in silence, and that is why I silenced the noise around you so that my voice could be recognized again. Do not fear the void. It is the space where my presence expands. Do not fear the delay. It is proof that I am aligning everything with perfect timing. Even if the wind seems not to blow and the sky seems silent, I continue to move the invisible in your favor. There are battles being won while you rest. There are answers being written while you doubt. Silence is the language of mature faith, and it is in it that I am teaching you to trust. When you feel forgotten, remember this: I continue to sustain the air that enters your lungs. If I still allow you to breathe, it is because there is still something of me being formed within you. The pause is not absence, it is construction. The interval is not punishment, it is preservation. I silence the external noise so that you may recognize the sound of what I am healing within you. Now that you understand that the silence was not absence, begin to see it as proof of my care. Because when no one saw you, I looked at you. When no one understood you, I embraced you. And when you thought I had gone away, that was precisely when I carried you. Share this message with someone who is silent today, because there are others who need to discover that silence can also be love. I hid certain answers from you, not to punish you, but to protect you from the weight they would bring prematurely. There are things that can only be revealed when your heart is healed enough not to be hurt by the truth. You asked me for signs, and I gave you silence. You cried out for open doors, and I showed you empty corridors. But what you didn't realize is that each step that seemed lost to you was part of a path that only I knew. There is something you haven't seen yet, something I secretly prepared while you thought nothing was happening. While you wept for what was gone, I wrote what was to come. While you lamented the absence, I aligned the reunion with purpose. Because I didn't leave you in the dark, I only hid the light until your eyes adjusted to the new brightness. It wasn't chance that brought you here. I myself guided you to this moment. You stand on the threshold of something that will change how you see the past. What you called loss was liberation. What you called the end was a new beginning. Every silence of mine was an answer. Every absence was a presence on another level. And now, when you think there's nothing more to hope for, that's when I begin to reveal it. I closed doors that seemed promising because behind them were wounds you didn't yet have the strength to face. I removed people from your path, not because they weren't important, but because they weren't ready to walk at the same pace I prepared for you. What you saw as rejection was simply me removing the weight that was preventing you from moving forward. And what you haven't yet seen is that the future I'm preparing is sustained by every no that hurt you. You still ask why I let you feel the emptiness, and the answer is in this very moment. The emptiness was the space I created to deposit the new. You couldn't receive what belongs to you if you were still attached to what no longer fit. That's why I made you wait. That's why I silenced the noise. That's why I let time mature what I promised you. What you haven't yet seen is that the time that seemed long to you was the same time that strengthened you. Now, look inside yourself. Do you feel something different? That's the sign that I can begin to reveal it. I am opening your spiritual eyes to recognize the meaning of the seasons you have lived through. Everything that seemed illogical will fall into place, and what seemed like ruin will reveal itself as foundation. There is a divine synchronicity moving at this moment, and it is beginning to align what previously seemed like chaos. You were not forgotten. You were chosen to see what others do not perceive. What you have not yet seen is that I have always been here, disguised in the small things, in the coincidences that were not accidental, in the delays that saved your life, in the losses that pushed you back onto my path. You did not lose me. You found me again. Stay with me. Don't interrupt the process out of fear of what you don't understand. What I will reveal to you will be lighter than the answers you so desperately sought. The new time has already begun, even if your eyes cannot yet see it. Be still, because what I have prepared is arriving silently, like the dawn that rises before you perceive the sunrise. If this voice speaks to you, confirm with an amen and continue listening to my voice. I saw when it all ended, and your heart didn't understand. I saw the moment your hands tried to hold on to what I had already decided to let go of. You thought it was a punishment, that something in you had failed, and you started looking for mistakes where there were only purposes. But I didn't punish you. I freed you. Sometimes the end is just the gentlest way I have to distance you from what wasn't meant to last. You called a tragedy what, in heaven, was celebrated as salvation. What broke wasn't your life, but the illusion that you could sustain it alone. I allowed the ground to give way because your feet were already on sand. And when the fall seemed inevitable, I reached out my hands to hold you. The end you so lamented was the same one that prevented you from falling any deeper. Not every ending is a loss. Some are the beginning of something you don't yet understand. When I took away what held you back, it wasn't to leave you empty, but to make room for what I wanted to put in your place. Your pain was the push that moved you toward your destiny. Because if I hadn't interrupted, you would have remained trapped by something that diminished you. I know it hurt, but the pain was the sign that something was being ripped from your hands to free your heart. You called a new beginning a failure. When you shut yourself in silence and said nothing made sense, I was already preparing the stage for something that would bloom from your ashes. What you called the end was merely the point where I began to write with my own hand. Because when you lose control, I take command. And when everything seems to collapse, it's just my way of rebuilding without the limits you imposed. There were people who left without explanation, and you believed it was rejection. But I removed them because they were occupying the space of what was to come. They needed to go so that you could breathe again. The love they left you was too small for the size of your soul. I needed to free you from those who made you forget who you are. And no matter how much you pleaded for them to stay, I remained silent because I knew your prayer came from fear, not faith. Not every ending is sadness. Some are the sound of heaven rearranging your story. When the relationship ended, when the work ceased, when the doors closed, it wasn't the enemy winning, it was me redirecting you. Because there are paths that seem good in human eyes but lead to exhaustion, and there are others that seem hard but lead to fulfillment. I chose the second for you. While you lamented what was gone, I celebrated what was to come. The end that wounded you was the same one that healed your purpose. I took you from the place of stagnation and led you to the fertile ground of faith. Each tear was a step, each loss was a seed. And now, What seemed like death will sprout in the form of a fulfilled promise. I didn't punish you, I helped you mature. What you called a desert was the school where I taught you to trust in me without seeing. If I had explained everything to you, you wouldn't have learned to walk by faith. That's why I remained silent. That's why I let everything fall apart before your eyes. But I never ceased to be present. You simply couldn't perceive me amidst the dismantling. Now I want you to understand. The end is not a sentence, it's a transition. I close chapters to protect what is to come. And every time your heart closes in pain, I open windows of hope. Because while you cry for what has ended, I am already preparing the new that will begin within you. Do not fear the end, because it is in it that I usually hide the beginning of my miracles. I saw what you couldn't see. I saw intentions hidden behind smiles, sweet words full of ulterior motives, promises that weren't born of truth. You believed you lost something valuable, but you were spared a burden that would have crushed you later on. I stepped in and closed doors that seemed good, because I knew what was behind them. While your heart longed for permanence, my love prepared liberation. You prayed for certain people to stay, but I removed them because they could not bear the weight of the purpose I have for you. You called it rejection, I called it deliverance. They didn't leave because they hated you. They left because their presence would hinder your growth. I removed them carefully, and you mistook my care for absence. But what you didn't realize is that true love sometimes needs separation to save. I saw when the bond you called love began to suffocate you. I saw when you molded yourself to fit into spaces that were never yours. I saw your soul shrinking to please, and I realized that if I didn't intervene, you would lose yourself trying to be what they expected. So, I took it away. I took it away forcefully, yes, but I took it away out of love. Because there are prisons that only break when loss is inevitable. And even though you cried because of it, each of your tears was a seed of freedom. When the phone stopped ringing, it was my hand interrupting conversations that wounded your spirit. When plans crumbled, it was my breath redirecting you to the right path. And when the relationship ended, it was my protection acting before the pain became destruction. I cut ties you wouldn't have the courage to break, and now you reap the peace that comes after the storm. There are things you still call injustice, but time will show they were mercies in disguise. If I hadn't allowed the rupture, you would never have known the taste of true freedom. While you lamented what was gone, I celebrated in heaven what was to come, because my priority has always been to preserve what I placed within you. Nothing is more precious to me than your essence, and I will not allow it to be lost in wrong loves, fragile alliances, or paths that seem beautiful but lead to ruin. It wasn't the enemy who took it away, it was me. It wasn't chance that interrupted, it was my hand saving you from collapse. When everything fell apart, you asked me where I was. I was among the shards, preventing the cut from being fatal. What you called betrayal was my warning. What you called abandonment was my help. If I hadn't and removed certain people, they would have made you doubt who I created you to be. Now that the noise has ceased, you can feel the relief that comes after obedience. You can breathe without the weight of those who drained your energy. You can walk without fear of falling back into the same abyss. I lifted you from the ruins and cleared the path, because only then could you see the road that leads to your destiny. Do not lament what is broken, be grateful that it has been removed. The love I took from you was the trap that would have prevented you from experiencing true love. The job that ended was the door that would have distanced you from your mission. The friendship that broke down was the broken mirror that distorted your image. I removed what would have made you fall, and now I lift you up to walk without fear. You look around and realize how much lighter the air feels. The voices that confused you no longer echo. The anxious soul that once lived there now begins to rest. This is the sign of liberation that I myself prepared. Each farewell was a liberation disguised as loss. Each silence was an answer, and each ending a disguised beginning. Comment 7777. It is the seal of your liberation. I saw you wondering what you did wrong. I saw guilt trying to take the place of peace, fear telling you that you weren't enough. But none of that was true. You weren't rejected, you were rescued. What ended wasn't punishment, it was liberation. I entered the midst of your pain and took away what you wouldn't have the courage to let go of. If you had stayed, what you called love would have turned into a prison. You believed that distance was a sign of abandonment, but it was me pulling you back to where your soul breathed. What seemed like someone turning their back on you was my arm guiding you away from the abyss. It wasn't the other who distanced themselves. It was I who separated you. And even if you didn't understand, the rupture was the beginning of your rebirth. Because there are bonds that need to be broken so that your heart can be free again. I saw when you asked for another chance, when you begged for what was lost to return. I heard your promises to do everything differently, but even so, I let go. Not because I didn't love you, but because I love you too much to keep you trapped in something that wasn't meant to last. I freed you from pain that didn't yet exist, but that would come with force. I protected your future from the destruction you called destiny. What you perceived as rejection was the sweetest way I found to tell you, enough. I stopped you from continuing to fight alone. I pulled you out of the storm and placed you on solid ground, but your eyes were still clouded by longing for what was gone. Now I want you to see clearly. I didn't take something good away from you. I gave you back yourself. I reminded you of who you are without you needing to prove your worth to anyone. You forgot that you were created to be free, not to live dependent on the love of someone who doesn't know how to love. My presence is the only bond that doesn't hold you back, but expands you. I didn't leave you empty. I gave you back space. What seemed like loneliness was merely the setting where I silently rebuilt you. It was in silence that I restored your strength. It was in absence that I planted your new purpose. Today, if you look closely, you'll realize you feel lighter. The pain doesn't hurt like it used to. The longing no longer drags you down, and the memory is no longer a wound. This is a sign of healing. You were rescued from what consumed you. The pain was the bridge by which I brought you back to life. Everything you thought rejected you actually set you free. I rescued you from ideas that diminished you, from loves that exhausted you, from plans that distanced you from me. I interrupted the cycle so that I wouldn't lose you amidst what you called normality. I saw what you didn't see, and that's why I acted sooner. Sometimes my care seems cold, but it's wisdom. I didn't wait for ruin to reach you. I pulled you out before it was too late. Now every step you take out of that past is an act of faith. Walk without fear, because what rejected you never truly belonged to you. I took you from the place where you begged for crumbs, and I lead you to the table where there is abundance. The love that comes will be whole, pure, sustained by truth. What ended doesn't take your hope, it only takes what no longer had meaning. Accept this new season without looking back. Don't ask anymore, why did it end? But be grateful that it's over, because what you called rejection was how I saved you. And every tear you shed was water nourishing the ground, where the new beginning that has already started is blossoming. Share this liberation message so that it reaches those who still believe that God has abandoned them. I saw when everything around you began to disappear. Friends drifted away, paths closed, dreams that seemed firm dissolved before your eyes. and you didn't understand. You wondered what you had done wrong, and you believed I punished you. But it wasn't punishment, it was reconstruction. I emptied your world because I was about to fill your life with something that wouldn't fit into the old ways. You clung to things, people, and places that made you feel safe. And when I removed them, you felt as if the ground had disappeared. What you didn't realize is that the ground that supported your steps was no longer solid, and I could not build upon unstable ruins. It was necessary to clear. It was necessary to remove. It was necessary to leave the space free. I did not destroy your life. I cleared the ground. I needed to remove what had become a burden so that something new could be born. I saw when you tried to understand, and fear whispered that all was lost. But the opposite was happening. I was beginning to create everything anew. While you wept for the doors that had closed, I prepared secret passages that would lead you higher. While you lamented what you lacked, I molded your strength in silence. You called what was fertile ground emptiness. You called what was my workshop a desert. It was there, when the noise ceased, that your soul began to breathe again. The silence was not abandonment. It was protection against the noise of the world that tried to distract you. Each loss that wounded you was a reminder that your foundation was being rebuilt, not on sand, but on rock. I saw when you knelt and asked, "Why did the Lord take everything away?" And if you could have heard what heaven answered, you would have smiled. I took away everything that separated you from me, so that when I gave you something new, you would know how to care for it. I removed the excess that made you bend over. I removed the pride that made you walk alone. I removed the bonds that prevented you from growing. Because sometimes, to rebuild, it is necessary to tear down what was poorly built. And yet, in every removal, I was present. It was I who sustained you when you thought you couldn't bear it. It was I who kept you from giving up. While you watched the world crumble, I saw foundations rising. What seemed like loss was foundation. What seemed like ruin was liberation. I emptied your world so that your faith would not depend on walls, but on me. Now begins the time to see what I planted in your tears bloom. Nothing was in vain. The sleepless nights, the silences, the days you felt invisible, all were part of the excavation that precedes the construction. I removed what held you back so that you could discover the value of walking free. Every absence was necessary because the new cannot be born where the old still occupies space. Do not lament what has gone, be grateful, because everything that has departed has made room for what is eternal, and what is to come will not be taken from you, for it is being built upon trust and truth. You were prepared to endure what others could not, and that is why the new beginning will shine brighter within you. Look into the void with faith. The place that seems silent today will be the stage for my greatest miracles. When the time of reconstruction is complete, you will understand that nothing was taken from you, only returned in a different way. What I removed was never your destiny. It was only the temporary setting for learning. Show that you understand, like, and follow, and keep listening to what I have prepared for your heart. I counted every tear that fell from your face. Not one was lost. Each one was gathered like a seed before me. You thought you were crying in vain, but your tears were writing prayers you didn't even know how to compose. When your voice fell silent, your tears spoke. They rose to heaven as witnesses to your faith. Each drop that flowed was a sign that, even without understanding, you still believed in me. I saw the day your heart was heavy, and you said you couldn't go on anymore. I saw when you hid to cry, trying to appear strong in front of others, but broken inside. None of those moments went unnoticed. While you cried, the heavens moved. I sent comfort without you realizing it. placing peace where there was despair, hope where everything seemed ruin. You thought you were weak for feeling so much, but it was in that feeling that your faith was strengthened. Each of your tears had a purpose. They cleansed your gaze, purified your heart, and made room for the new. The pain you experienced was not wasted, it was preparation. I used suffering as fire that refines gold. Each disappointment removed what was impure. Each loss uprooted what didn't fit with what I planned for you. Nothing was in vain. What hurt you taught you. What tired you matured you. And what made you cry also brought you closer to me. You asked yourself why I allowed you to suffer so much. And I answer you now, because there were hidden treasures within you that would only be revealed under pressure. The pain didn't come to destroy you, it came to extract what is most precious within you. While you lamented, I molded you. While you said, I can't take it anymore, I strengthened you. Your resilience was born from what seemed unbearable to you. You look back and see scars, but I see paths. Each healed wound is a sign that you have won. And the marks you carry are not reminders of defeat, they are testimonies of victory. Don't call what made you grow a loss. The tears you shed watered the roots of the faith that sustains you today. Without them, you wouldn't be who you are. I saw your surrender amidst the pain, and it was that surrender that allowed me to act. When you stopped fighting the inevitable, I began to rebuild what was broken. When you accepted what I allowed, your heart opened to receive what I promised. The tears were the meeting point between your surrender and my providence. Now I show you. What you wept for yesterday is blossoming today. What seemed like the end was only the beginning of something pure and solid. No suffering has been forgotten. I transformed your pain into wisdom, your falls into stepping stones, your tears into fuel for a new time. The pain that once destroyed you is the same pain that now sustains you, because in it you learned to depend on me. The time you felt alone was the time I shaped you the most. Loneliness was the school where you learned to hear my voice. Each tear was a chapter in the story. I am writing with you. A story that doesn't end in pain, but in redemption. And when you think you've cried enough, remember, the deeper the soil is watered, the stronger what is planted grows. I never waste tears. They are the material with which I build miracles. And what once made you crumble will today be proof that it was worth staying. Because weeping may last for a night, but joy finds those who were faithful in the darkness in the morning. While you believed you were standing still, I was transforming you. Each day of silence, each tear, each moment of waiting was part of the invisible work I performed within you. I didn't abandon you in the desert. I refined you there. What seemed like inertia to you was the time your roots grew deeper. What seemed like loss to you was merely the excess being removed to reveal the essential. I am shaping the new within you, and this newness is not born from haste, but from patience. I do not hastily build what I wish to last forever. The pain you have endured were the tools with which I sculpted you. Each disappointment removed what prevented you from seeing who you truly are. Each frustration honed the faith that now sustains you. Clay must be broken before it becomes a vessel, and that is what I did. I dismantled you to remake you in a stronger and more beautiful form. There were days when you didn't recognize yourself. You felt as if everything you were had been lost. But, in truth, I was taking away what didn't belong to you. Your essence remained intact, only covered by layers of fear, guilt, and self-defense. Now, I am removing those shells, revealing the brilliance you stopped seeing in yourself. Because your identity is not what the world made you believe, it's what I planted in you before the world hurt you. The process hurts because the old mold no longer fits. I know the fire scared you, but the fire didn't come to burn you. It came to purify you. I used the heat of losses, of changes, and of time to solidify what was once fragile. What you call delay is just the time in the oven, and whoever comes out of the oven I prepared doesn't break again for the same reasons. The new that is born in you is solid and will be able to withstand the weight of the promises to come. Do not complain about the process, embrace it. Each silence is a chisel stroke, each weight a brush stroke of my perfection. I mold you with love, and love never wastes pain. Everything you have lived through is being incorporated into your structure. You will not be the same, and that is what makes this time sacred. What once destroyed you no longer affects you. The strength you sought outside was always within. It only needed to be activated by the touch of my hands. Now look at yourself calmly. Do you notice how you no longer react the same way? How your heart, even weary, understands more than it judges? This is spiritual maturity blossoming. The new in you is taking shape. You are learning to trust, not because everything went right, but because you understand that even what went wrong was part of the plan. The faith that is born from pain is the one that remains when the wind changes. I didn't put you through this to test you, but to prepare you. And now that the mold is complete, I want you to know, no part of you will be wasted. Your falls, your mistakes, your restarts, everything served to make you who you are. You are the result of my patience and my promise. What comes now will find you no longer fragile, but ready. Continue to trust, even without seeing the final result. There are still pieces being fitted together, but the design is already clear to me. Soon, what seemed like chaos will be revealed as art, and you will understand that you were not being punished. You were being created anew. If you feel that God is shaping you, confirm with an amen and leave your like as an act of faith. I saw how hard you tried to keep alive something that was already killing you inside. I saw how you called love what was actually consuming you. What seemed like affection was slowly shrinking you, and you accepted it because you thought being loved meant being necessary. But there are loves that don't liberate, they imprison. There are hands that caress tenderly and squeeze with control. I had to intervene because you no longer knew the difference between being cared for and being dominated. You grew accustomed to the tightness that prevented you from breathing, thinking that was security. You called the fear of being alone stability. You called the dependence that drained you companionship. And when I took away what you called your safe haven, you despaired. But what I ripped away wasn't refuge, it was a cell. What I ended wasn't a relationship, it was a chain. I saw how your heart was becoming too small to hold the purpose I gave you because you molded yourself to fit into the space the other allowed you. The love that comes from me does not diminish you, it expands you. It doesn't make you crawl on your knees before someone who only loves you when you obey. True love doesn't demand that you deny yourself to be accepted. It makes you flourish. And that's why I needed to tear the false love from your life. I saw what you didn't see, the smiles that hid intentions, the promises that masked control, the sweet words that slowly poisoned. Before your essence faded, I broke the bond. You said you were rejected, but you were protected. You said you lost everything, but I gave you back to yourself. What seemed like affection was manipulation disguised as love. There were eyes upon you that did not desire your growth, only your dependence. And when I realized that your light was beginning to fade so that the other would not feel overshadowed, I blew the wind of separation. If I hadn't allowed you to leave, you would have continued confusing attention with love. And little by little, your soul would have fallen silent. Your dreams would have withered. and your faith would have been shaped by the voice of someone who never understood your mission. I freed you from emotional captivity and led you back to the freedom to hear me without interference. It was necessary to break the bond, to restore your heart. I know it hurt. I know the emptiness scared you. You look back and didn't understand why what seemed so right ended so suddenly. But what you didn't see is that the love you gave was true, and what you received was self-interest. I didn't allow it to continue because your heart belongs to me, and no one has the right to mold it with fear or guilt. What I have in store for you will not require you to hide, but to reveal yourself. Now, in the silence, you will realize how different the air feels. The weight you felt wasn't yours. It was the burden of carrying the world of someone who never truly loved you. You are breathing again, and that is the sign of liberation. There will be days when you will feel longing, but not for the other person, longing for the version of yourself that tried to please. And it is this version that I am also transforming. Because freedom is not just being away from those who hurt you. It's no longer recognizing yourself as someone who accepted being hurt. What seemed like love was a broken mirror showing you a distorted image. Now I show you who you truly are, whole, valuable, and free. You don't need to beg for presence to prove your worth. You were created to live in communion, not in captivity. I didn't take you away to isolate you. I took you away to teach you that love and imprisonment can never coexist. Remember, the love that imprisons does not come from me. I am the God who liberates, not the one who suffocates. When I intervene, it is always to preserve what is pure. All that was disguise has fallen, and what remains is now fertile ground for true love to flourish. Do not fear solitude. Fear losing yourself again in someone who does not see you. Solitude, when lived with me, is the room where I prepare you for the reunion with true love. When the new comes, you will recognize the difference. The love that will come will not make you doubt. It will bring you peace. It will not ask you to dim your light. It will ask you to shine alongside others. It will not hold you back with promises, but will accompany you in purpose. And when that happens, you will understand that what seemed like affection was imprisonment, and that the pain of liberation was worth every second. Share this warning. Someone needs to wake up from this illusion today. I know the way everything happened confused you. I know you looked to the sky and asked why I let something that seemed so right crumble. But there was a moment when I needed to act forcefully, because what you called a blessing was about to become your prison. I couldn't allow you to remain trapped in something that would consume what I had placed within you. When I intervened, it wasn't to hurt you, it was to save you. There are times when my love seems like a storm, but even the wind obeys my will. When I blew and knocked down what you had built, I was setting you free. You thought it was injustice, but it was help. I firmly entered your path because I saw what you could not see. I saw the abyss behind the smile, the deceit behind the affection, the weariness hidden in the midst of what you called peace. I interrupted what would have made you fall, and although the impact hurt, it was the only way to preserve what was still pure in you. You said I acted too quickly, that I didn't give you time. But the approaching danger was also swift. I acted before your heart was completely corrupted by dependence, fear, and lies. You wanted to persist, and I needed to put up barriers you couldn't cross. It was my wall of love that prevented you from going down the wrong path. Sometimes to love is to prevent, and I loved you by preventing. You called me silent, but I was screaming inside your spirit. Every feeling of discomfort, every warning you ignored, were my warnings. And when you refused to listen, I made it all break apart at once. It was abrupt, it was painful, but it was liberating. I took you away from something that would have made you lose your identity, and today you are beginning to realize that it was deliverance, not punishment. There are wounds that bleed when cleaned, but it's the only way to heal. My intervention hurt because what I removed was deeply rooted. I needed to pull it out forcefully, and you mistook firmness for anger. But I didn't punish you, I preserved you. What was removed abruptly was removed so that it wouldn't slowly destroy you. If I had waited, you would have lost your joy, your peace, and your essence. Now, as time passes, you begin to understand that what crumbled didn't help you grow. You start to breathe again, and you realize the air is lighter. That was my goal. I didn't want you imprisoned in empty promises, but free to live what I truly prepared. And even if you still feel something is missing, it's just the usual echo, not a lack of love. True love is still coming, and when it arrives, you will recognize that nothing that was gone was necessary. Don't blame yourself for what ended abruptly. The interruption was part of the plan. I freed you from alliances that drained you and prevented you from continuing in stories that didn't have a happy ending. You didn't realize it, but my shield was active. There were things moving invisibly against you, and my strength intercepted them before they touched your spirit. While you lamented the end, I celebrated in heaven the victory of your rescue. And that is why today, I want you to understand. I am the God who protects even when it seems like I am tearing you away. I am the Father who prevents falls that you wouldn't see coming. When I say enough, it's because something sacred is in danger, and that something is you. I defend you even from yourself when your heart insists on walking where your soul wouldn't resist. I know the paths that shine but end in darkness, and out of love, I close you off from them. One day, you will look back and give thanks for the collapse that saved you. The memory that hurts today will become a testament to my faithfulness. And when someone asks you how you managed to survive that loss, you will say, it was God who intervened before it was too late. Because you were loved in the midst of your fall, protected in the midst of your confusion, and restored in the midst of your pain. What I do today may seem like force, but it is love in its purest form. The force with which I close a door is the same with which I open the future. Do not fear my way of acting. Fear only not listening to me. For everything I close is for protection, and everything I open is for purpose. Be at peace, because the force that frightened you was the arm that protected you. Follow along to continue hearing. My voice, there are truths that only those who remain can hear. I saw you almost losing yourself. I saw how, in the name of pleasing others, you let go of who you were. Every concession, every forced silence, every gesture you made to maintain something that no longer belonged to you, I observed it all. And while the world applauded your strength, I saw the weariness behind the smile. Each time you chose to endure in order not to disappoint, a part of your essence was silenced. That's why I needed to intervene, not to punish you, but to prevent you from fading away, trying to be accepted. You thought the pain of the end was the limit, but the limit was arriving when you began to believe you didn't deserve anything more. I saw your worth being eroded by doubt. I saw your dreams shrinking because someone convinced you that you dreamed too much. I saw your light hiding so as not to bother those who didn't know how to handle your brilliance. And before your soul believed that lie, I took you away from there. I prevented you from losing yourself. I know the cut was abrupt, and I know you still ask why I let you fall like that. But it was necessary. The ground that crumbled beneath your feet was the same ground that kept you trapped in a story that no longer belonged to you. I broke what held you up, because what held you up was also draining you. And even though you called me cruel, I was only protecting what was most sacred, your heart. You didn't realize it, but you were about to transform into someone I didn't create you to be. You were molding your gestures, your words, and even your dreams to fit the expectations of others. Your generosity was turning into submission, your sweetness into fear, your faith into doubt. With each step, you moved a little further away from who you were called to be. I couldn't stand by silently while you ceased to exist inside. That's why I stepped in firmly and broke the cycle. Not everything you call the end is loss. Sometimes it's preservation. I preserved what was still pure within you. When I removed people, I silenced voices that made you doubt. When I closed doors, I closed paths that would have made you give up. When I silenced the noise around you, it was so that you could hear the sound of your own breath and remember that you are still alive. The silence that frightened you was the beginning of your healing. There comes a point in the journey where the danger is no longer the enemy, but the weary soul itself. The wounded heart begins to believe that pain is the only form of love, and that's when I needed to act. Before you confused suffering with destiny, I stepped in. Before you normalized the emptiness, I breathed life back into your life. You thought I took everything from you, but I gave you back your consciousness. I reminded you that you are still capable of feeling joy, of dreaming, of hoping. I stopped you from continuing to sabotage yourself. I stopped you from accepting less than I promised you. I stopped you from repeating patterns that would slowly kill you. Yes, I was harsh, but harshness was the language your pain understood. I could no longer call you with whispers. I needed to move the ground so that you would look at me. And now that you look, you realize that what you called collapse was my call. Today, you breathe easier. The wound still hurts, but your soul understands now. You were uprooted from the wrong place before your roots dried up. You were freed from the burden of carrying the world on your shoulders. And even if you still miss what's gone, that longing is just a memory of a time when you didn't know your worth. I took you away to remind you of that. You are worth more than anything that makes you diminish yourself to fit in. Allow me to continue guiding your path. What I do is to preserve your wholeness. Every detour, every pause, every loss is a way to keep you aligned with your purpose. Fear no more what ends. Fear only what takes you away from your essence. Because I did not create you to be a shadow, I created you to reflect light. Now, if you look honestly, you will see that the end you so lamented was the point where your true life began. It was there, in the fall, that you rediscovered yourself. I didn't let you fall to humiliate you. I let you touch the ground, so you would remember the place where I always was, beneath you, supporting you. When everything gave way, my hand held you. You were saved from yourself. And one day, when all is calm, you will realize that the greatest deliverance I ever gave you wasn't from others, but from your own forgetfulness. I prevented you from losing yourself, and that's why you're still here. I watched you break down in silence. I saw the moment when your body still tried to appear strong, but your heart no longer had the strength to continue. Your tears were not wasted. They became the cement with which I rebuilt your foundations. While you cried, believing that everything was over, I began to build what would be new. You thought that crying was the end, but it was the beginning of the new start I planned for you. Each tear that fell before me contained words your mouth could not pronounce. I heard the prayers you yourself forgot to say. I heard the muffled cries that pain prevented from escaping. I heard your heart whispering, "I can't take it anymore." And even without sound, I understood, because your tears are the language of faith when words fail. It was through them that you allowed me to touch what hurt the most. While you slept exhausted, I worked in silence. I stitched together the tears in your soul, closing wounds you didn't even remember having. I rebuilt you without fanfare, in the darkness of the room, on nights when you believed no one saw your despair. I saw, and each sob was used as mortar to rebuild what time and disappointments had corroded. Your pain was not ignored, it was raw material. I used what broke you to strengthen you. What tore you apart became the fabric of your resilience. What made you crumble was the same thing that taught you to depend on me. I do not waste suffering. Every loss, every lament, every sleepless night, all served to prepare the ground for your victory. You thought you had lost everything, but you only lost what wouldn't support what I was building. I removed fragile pieces to lay eternal foundations. While you asked for answers, I gave you structure. While you asked for explanations, I gave you firmness. You wanted to understand, but I was remaking you so that, when you understood, you would already be healed. I rebuilt you without haste, because everything that is eternal needs time. When I rebuild, nothing remains the same. I remove what is crooked, correct what the world has deformed, restore the shine that pain has extinguished. You look at yourself and still see the patches, but I see the finished work. Every crack that shames you will become a testament to my care. I know that sometimes you doubt the process. You think, why does it still hurt if it's already over? But healing isn't the absence of pain, it's learning about it. I rebuild you so that nothing will break you for the same reason. You will be strong, but not hardened, sensitive, but not vulnerable. The new self I am building in you is light, but unshakable. Remember, a house only falls when the foundation is shallow. The collapse you experienced revealed how much depth you needed. Now you have it. What was once unstable has become firm. And all of this began at that moment when, with teary eyes, you said, "Lord, I can't go on anymore." That's when I replied, "I know, now it's my turn." Today, even if you still feel tired, there's something different about you. Your faith is no longer the same, it has matured. You no longer pray with fear, you pray with confidence. You no longer ask for everything to go back to the way it was before. You ask for everything to be new. And that is a sign of a completed reconstruction. Look closely at what remains and realize you are still standing. This is proof that my hand never left you. You were broken, but not destroyed. Wounded, but not forgotten. What seemed like ruins now stands as a temple. And when they ask how you managed to endure, simply answer, "While I wept, God rebuilt me." Comment, "God is rebuilding me." I saw when the silence began to frighten you, when the hours seemed too long, and your heart, accustomed to so much noise, didn't know what to do with its own echo. You tried to fill that space with hurried conversations, with promises that weren't kept, with distractions that left you exhausted, but nothing was enough. This emptiness that surrounded you wasn't punishment. It was the tenderest reminder that you were made for my presence. I made you miss me so that you would remember where your soul rests. I watched you run to and fro like someone searching for water in cracked earth. I saw when you placed your hope in hands that couldn't sustain you, when you clung to routines that only distracted you from what mattered. And yet, the thirst remained. Because your thirst isn't for novelty, it's for origin. You long for the place you come from me. Then, when everything became quiet and loneliness seemed like a wall, I whispered, "Come back." The longing that wounded you was my call, veiled in tenderness. There was a time when you sought me without haste. Your heart came before your words, and your room was an altar. Over time, wounds created a shell, and haste made you forget the door. through which you always entered, simplicity. To bring you back, I removed the excess. I turned off lights that distracted you, silenced voices that confused you, dismantled supports that made you forget that your refuge is me. I didn't leave you alone, I left you without crutches. Difference saves. The emptiness that surrounded you was the room where I waited for you, seated. I was there when you thought no one saw you. I heard your restless footsteps in the hallway, the times you opened and closed the same drawer without knowing what to look for. I saw your long nights, and in them, I placed a pillow of peace that you didn't notice. What you called a long night was my cloak spread out, asking you to rest amidst what you don't understand. I made you miss me because your heart was getting used to surviving with very little. You fed on crumbs of attention, drank sips of fleeting joy, and called that life. But I created you for fullness. The absence that squeezed you inside was your soul, reminding you that abundance is not an excess of things. It is a presence that does not leave. When the messages ceased, when the schedule emptied, when the plans were postponed, I made room for the only encounter you couldn't miss. Don't confuse silence with abandonment. Silence was the language I chose to heal what words could no longer reach. Your mind needed to lower the volume so that your spirit could hear again. And when, for the first time in a long time, you honestly said, "I just want to feel you," the whole heaven responded, not with spectacle, but with gentleness. I entered your room like someone lighting a candle, without fanfare, but changing everything. Notice how, little by little, you began to breathe more deeply. How the things that held you back lost their power. How your body, which longed for escape, began to desire permanence, to remain in me. I restored weight to your prayers, brightness to your mornings, meaning to your steps. What you lacked was not a solution, but direction. And direction is not found by looking in all directions. It is found on your knees, with your face lifted only after your heart surrenders. The longing I planted doesn't diminish you, it aligns you. It's longing that pulls you by name when weariness tries to scatter you among 1,000 tasks. It's longing that reminds you that being loved isn't about being distracted, it's about being seen. And I see you. I saw when the memory of old embraces threatened to drag you back to what hurt you, and it was my longing that held your hand. I made you prefer my lap to habit. You might ask why I didn't immediately fill the space I created. Because there are voids that first need to teach. They need to remind you that nothing outside of me completes you. I didn't want you to confuse my comfort with substitutes. I wanted you to recognize the source. Therefore, before pouring it out, I allowed you to feel thirst. Thirst generates gratitude for the water, and gratitude generates faithfulness to the right well. See now, silence no longer threatens you. It's a refuge. The clock no longer haunts you. It's a companion. The walls of your room have ceased to be witnesses to despair and have become protective walls for eternal conversations. You are learning to stay, not to run from yourself, not to hide from me. When fear blows, return to the place where longing was born. I will be there, as I always have been, even before I was absent from you. I made you miss me, so that you would remember that your story has a voice of origin and destiny. What I speak within you is not an echo of an empty room. It is a promise of a full house. I will patiently occupy every corner of your heart, and while I occupy it, I teach you to prefer what is essential. You will notice laughter will return without reason, the song will return without melody, rest will come without vacation. That is how it is when I dwell within. If one day pain tries to convince you that you are alone, answer with memory. The heart that longs for heaven is never far from it. Longing is the way back, and the return when it is true, has no performance metric. It has the sincerity of one who says, "Stay with me," and discovers that I already stayed. What seemed like absence to you was my invitation. What seemed like loss to you was my care. What seemed like an end to you was the beginning of a communion that matures without noise. And when you wonder if you're ready, remember, being ready isn't about no longer missing someone. It's about knowing who to turn to when that longing comes. Maturity doesn't eliminate longing, it consecrates it. And I consecrate yours, transforming it into a safe path to me every time. Enjoy this moment if you feel that God is filling your emptiness. I know how much loneliness hurt you. I know how many times you looked around and found no one to share the weight you carried. I saw the cold bed, the unanswered messages, the silence of the long nights, and the thought telling you that you didn't matter. But the loneliness I allowed wasn't abandonment, it was birth. It didn't come to empty you of hope, it came to fill you with purpose. It was in that emptiness that the new began to breathe. You thought I had isolated you from everyone, but I only separated you to heal you. You called isolation what heaven calls incubation. I needed the noise to cease so that you could hear me again. The voices that confused you needed to be silenced so that you could recognize my voice. And when everything around you stopped responding, it was because I began to speak. At first, the silence seemed cruel to you. You wondered where those who claimed to love you were, but their absence was the remedy your soul needed. If they had stayed, you would have remained dependent. I allowed the absence because solitude is the place where self-love is reborn and divine love matures. It was there, amidst tears and sighs, that I taught you that you were never alone, only surrounded by empty presences. Loneliness revealed what companionship had hidden. It showed what was neediness in you and what was faith. It showed how much you depended on approval to feel whole. It showed the cracks in your heart that you hid even from yourself. And when you finally stopped resisting, when you accepted being alone, my presence began to fill the space. You discovered that you don't need applause to have value, nor company to exist. You are enough because I dwell within you. I sat you at the table of silence so that you could learn to savor the calm. I removed the excess of faces so that you could see your own. And when you looked inside and saw the accumulated weariness, I was there, patiently removing each knot. Loneliness was the scalpel I used to cut what still bound you to the past. It was the lap where you stopped fighting the inevitable and began to understand that new beginnings start from within. There are pains that only heal when no one is watching. I hid you for a while, not because you weren't worthy of light, but because you needed to learn to shine without depending on anyone's gaze. The world taught you to measure worth by presence, but heaven measures by essence. It was when no one saw you that I molded you the most. When you thought time was lost, my time advanced upon you with precision. Loneliness was the womb of your transformation. It was there that your faith matured, your trust deepened, and your spirit was strengthened. Before, you believed in me because I delivered you. Now, you believe because you know me. The difference is immense. The faith that is born of communion is unbreakable because it doesn't depend on circumstances. It depends on relationship. And that is what loneliness gave you back. Relationship, not just belief. I saw the day you started talking to yourself and realized it wasn't loneliness, it was prayer. I saw the moment you spoke in the dark and felt an inexplicable peace. It was me there. Every tear that fell on the pillow was answered with presence. You called it longing for someone, but it was longing for me. The cold you felt was the memory of a spiritual warmth that still existed, waiting to be rekindled. And when you finally accepted that being alone wasn't a punishment, everything changed. That room that once seemed small became a sanctuary. That time you called loss became an incubator of vision. It was in solitude that your creativity resurfaced, that your spiritual sensitivity sharpened, that your inner voice strengthened. Solitude, daughter, son, is the room where I usually train those who will lead. It is the field where I prepare those who will be sent. Many ask for purpose, but few can endure the silence where purpose is born, because the new needs to be generated in the dark, like the seed under the earth. I buried you for a time, but not to lose you, to make you flourish. Everything that surrounded you dried up so that you could discover that your root is in me. When nothing else sustained you, you discovered that you had always been sustained. And now that you've emerged from the desert, look at yourself. You are living proof that solitude doesn't kill, it transforms. Your sensitivity is now different. You discern what once deceived you. You value silence as one values air. What seemed like loss has become preparation. You didn't return the same, you returned whole. And that is the miracle that few perceive, that of rediscovering oneself amidst absence. I rebuilt you where no one saw. I tenderly rebuilt your foundations. And when you are ready for the new, it will come, but it will not be as before. It will not come to fill voids. It will come to overflow what is already full. The new that awaits you will not be a refuge. It will be a mission, and you will recognize it, because it will bring peace, and peace is my signature. When you feel alone again, remember that solitude was your first school. It is there that you learn to hear me without intermediaries. It is there that your voice mingles with mine. And whenever you return to that place, do not fear it. Just close your eyes and say, Lord, speak to me. I am here, and I will speak. Fear not the silence any longer, for it was in it that your new life began. What seemed empty revealed itself to be a cradle, and what you called the end was merely the time in which I nurtured the seed of the new within you. Now, walk in peace, knowing that every second you spent was never a loss, it was a birth. Share this message with someone who still doesn't understand that loneliness can also be love. But before I let you go, I need you to understand something that many never understand. There are blessings that only flourish in absence. It is in silence that the heart learns to hear what noise obscures. You wanted immediate answers. You wanted me to speak through people, through visible signs, through external confirmations. But I wanted you mature enough to recognize my voice, even when it came softly, even when it was just a light feeling of peace. This is the kind of intimacy that cannot be taught with words, only with experience. During that time when you believed you were forgotten, I gave you one of the greatest gifts I can bestow upon someone: sacred solitude. Not the loneliness that weighs you down, but the loneliness that liberates. Solitude is the place where the spirit rests without needing explanation, where love needs no audience, where faith needs no spectacle. There, you discovered that you don't need to be seen to be valuable, nor understood to be loved. You learned that I choose you every day, even when no one else does. And now that you are walking among people again, take this new awareness with you. Do not seek outside what I have planted within. Let the love that springs from my presence be the filter for all your relationships. Because he who learns to be alone with me never again accepts being accompanied by someone who makes him feel empty. The time of dependence is over. You don't need presences that fill your schedule, but purposes that nourish your soul. I want you to know there will still be days of silence, and they don't mean regression. They are merely pauses between chapters. They are breaths of heaven so that the heart doesn't get lost in the noise of achievements. Solitude, when it matures, transforms into constant communion. Even surrounded by people, you will remain aware of me. There will be no more fear, because you will understand that your main companion does not change. Remember this truth: the desert did not destroy you, it purified you. It separated what was impurity from what is essence. What left was superfluous, what remains is eternal. Each solitary minute was an invisible dialogue between your soul and heaven. And that is why, when I speak to you now, you understand with such clarity. What was once noise has become pure frequency. Now go on, but go lightly. The road that opens before you doesn't demand haste, it demands presence. Carry silence as your shield and peace as your banner. And if at some point you again taste the absence, don't despair. Remember, it's only a sign that I'm about to teach you something new. I don't withdraw to punish, I withdraw to reveal. Absence is the prelude to revelation. You are the fruit of my patience, my rebuilding, and my care. I formed you in the womb of silence so that you might be a voice of comfort amidst the noise of the world. Loneliness was not your enemy, it was your teacher. And the lesson it left you is eternal. Whoever learns to find me in the void never again feels lost, because they know that, even in the desert, my love continues to be home. The time for restoration has arrived. I prepared you in silence, healed your wounds, removed what could not remain, and now, within you, something new begins to pulsate. A different heart is being born, not made of impulses, but of purpose, not moved by fear, but by trust. What was once fragile is now firm. What once bled now beats to the rhythm of faith. You are no longer the same as yesterday. There is a calmness within you that doesn't depend on circumstances. There is a strength that doesn't come from the world. I placed it inside you, in the exact spot where there was pain before. Each broken part served as a mold for what now flourishes. The heart I am forming within you is new, but it carries the wisdom of what has already lived. It knows how to love without losing itself, to serve without negating itself, to forgive without fading away. Remember those nights when you felt you couldn't take it anymore? It was on those nights that the new began to germinate. While you cried, I sowed. While you lamented, I breathed life into what seemed dead. The wound that seemed to destroy you was merely the soil being turned over so that the seed of the new version of you could sprout. You didn't understand, but the whole process already pointed to this, the birth of a whole heart. Now begins the time to feel differently. You will see that the same places no longer attract you as before, that the same words no longer hurt you in the same way. Because your heart has been restored and no longer reacts with despair, but with discernment. It has already learned to wait, to trust, to recognize what comes from me and what does not. Pain has taught you to filter, and faith has taught you to rest. This new heart that I give you is a sanctuary where nothing false can remain. It is light because it carries no old guilt. You are wise because you don't need to prove your worth. It is profound because you have learned to nourish yourself with me. You will realize that the more you surrender, the freer you become. Because a healed heart does not fear love, and a free heart does not fear the future. I am giving you a heart that does not harden in the face of rejection, but understands, that does not hold grudges, but learns to pray, that does not give up, but knows when to stop when I say enough. This is the kind of heart that transforms the world around it without needing a stage, because it carries my character. The beauty of the new is that it doesn't need to erase the old to exist, it simply redeems it. You were broken, but I remade you. And in this new beat you feel in your chest is the sound of a new beginning. Each heartbeat is a reminder there is still life, there is still promise, there is still purpose. The old heart grew weary trying to understand. The new one simply trusts. The old one was easily hurt. The new one flourishes even amidst pain. The old one waited to be loved, to feel alive. The new one loves because it is already full of me. I am giving you the heart I always dreamed of seeing in you, and with it will come a new vision, new paths, and new connections. Different people will come closer because your energy has changed. What once hurt you now recognizes you as light. This new heart does not attract destruction, it attracts promise. It is the seal of your spiritual maturity, the sign that the process was worthwhile. Now, don't look back at what you were. Look at what you are allowing me to build. The new heart I give you is not a replacement. It's an expansion. It carries everything you were, but free from the weight that prevented you from moving forward. I remade you in love, and the love that springs from me is eternal. Share this seed. It will germinate in other hearts. True life doesn't begin when everything falls into place, but when you decide to trust, even without understanding. I saw how many times you tried to control your surroundings as if your effort could guarantee the future. I saw when you made plan after plan, and each one seemed to crumble before your eyes. You called it failure, but it was liberation. Because while you tried to command, fear guided you. But when you trust, it is faith that leads you. Those who trust don't need to understand every step, just take the next one. Faith isn't the absence of doubt, it's the decision to walk even with a trembling heart. I don't ask for perfection, I ask for surrender, because trust is the seed of life. It makes hope sprout where despair has dug holes. It's what keeps your heart beating when the world tells you to give up. You learned to believe in me when things were going well, but now I teach you to trust when everything seems uncertain. Mature faith doesn't wait to see in order to follow, it follows in order to see. I know how difficult it is to let go of control. I know that fear whispers that if you do nothing, everything will fall apart. But in truth, it is when you let go that I begin to act. While you try to solve things with your own strength, your vision limits the miracle. When you surrender, the whole heaven moves in your favor. Trust in me as a child trusts the hand that guides it, even without knowing the way. I did not promise the absence of storms, but constant presence in the midst of them. And this presence is what sustains you. How many times have I saved you from falls you didn't even notice? How many times have I prevented evil from reaching you while you slept? You don't see it, but my care never ceases. Trust is the breath of the soul. When you stop trusting, your heart suffocates. So, every time doubt comes, take a deep breath and remember, I am here. The air that fills your lungs is proof that I continue to sustain your existence. You were not called to survive, you were called to live. And to live is to trust that every door that closes has a reason, that every wait has a time, that every no that hurt you was a yes disguised as my will. Those who trust don't need proof, they need presence. And my presence is constant. I am in the silence, in the unexpected, in the detail. I am there when everything goes right, and also when nothing makes sense. And when you can rest in me, even in chaos, that's when you realize you are already healed from fear. Because peace doesn't come from the absence of struggle. It comes from the certainty that I fight with you. You will still see promises fulfilled, but first I want to teach you to rejoice in the process. The path between the promise and its fulfillment is where trust grows. It is there that I shape you, teach you, prepare you. A heart that trusts does not live by predictions, it lives by faith. It does not live by answers, it lives by presence. And that presence is your greatest security. Trust and live. Live without fear of losing, because what I have planned for you cannot be stolen. Live without anxiety, because time is in my hands. Live lightly, because what comes from me does not weigh you down. Whoever trusts walks without seeing the ground and yet does not fall, because I sustain them. Comment 7,777. It's your seal of obedience and faith. The peace that comes from me is not the silence of the world. It is serenity within you. It does not depend on what happens outside, but on what I have already done within. The weight that has accompanied you for so long begins to dissolve because your heart has finally learned to trust. You no longer need to fight with everything and against everyone. Now you simply breathe and know that I am with you. This awareness is the beginning of true lightness. I saw when your shoulders slumped under the burden of your attempts. I saw when you believed you needed to bear everything alone. But what was once a weight is now surrender. Peace comes when you stop trying to understand and simply accept that my love knows the way. When your mind is silent, my voice is heard. When you let me act, your heart learns to rest. The world has taught you that peace is the absence of conflict, but I teach you that it is the presence of trust. Peace is not the calm after the storm, it is shelter during it. It is knowing that the boat will not sink because I am in it. It is the heart that no longer fears the waves because it has learned to recognize my voice saying, "Be still." And even if the wind continues to blow, there is something in you that will no longer be shaken. The weight you carried wasn't just past pain, but expectations that weren't yours. You wanted to be everything to everyone. You wanted to fix what you couldn't change. And in doing so, you forgot yourself. Now I give you back lightness. The peace I give you doesn't make you run from responsibilities, but teaches you to walk gently. Because whoever learns to walk in me doesn't walk in a hurry. They walk at the pace of eternity. There is a difference between weariness and surrender. Weariness comes when you try to hold on to what is too heavy. Surrender comes when you trust that I will sustain you. When you surrender, the burden transforms into wings. That is why peace is not passive. It is alive. It moves with you, envelops your thoughts, calms your heart, and renews your energy. You no longer need to justify what you feel or hide your vulnerabilities. The peace I place within you is mature. It knows when to act and when to wait. It makes you realize that not every response is urgent, that not every noise needs to be heard. My peace teaches you to live with depth, fewer reactions, more presence, less control, more trust. Now, what once troubled you simply passes through you without destroying you. What once kept you awake at night now finds you at rest. I promised I would give you peace, and it has arrived. Not with applause, but with silence. Not as an end, but as a continuation. This peace is the seal that the process is complete, that the new heart I formed in you is now ready to love, serve, and live without fear. Do you notice how the air feels different? That's because your spirit breathes relief. The memories are still there, but they don't hurt anymore. The fears still whisper, but they no longer control you. And even though the future is still under construction, you know it's secure because I write it with my own hands. Let this peace remain. Don't lose it trying to understand what has already been resolved. Guard it as you would a treasure, because it is a sign of my constant presence. Whenever the world tries to steal your peace, remember what I told you now. You are no longer alone. The burden is in the past. Walk lightly, smile without fear of tomorrow. Live in the present moment with complete confidence, because those who have peace don't need proof, only certainty, and that certainty lives within you. If this peace reaches you now, confirm with an amen and continue listening. Danger doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it enters slowly, smiling. The enemy rarely presents itself as the evil it is. It prefers to come disguised as comfort, as a fulfilled need, as seemingly innocent affection. It speaks your language, repeats your dreams, presents itself as an answer, when in reality it is distraction. That is why I teach you to discern, not to fear, because those who walk with me need not live in fear, only in vigilance. Deception begins subtly. It approaches as if understanding, offers presence when you feel alone, promises attention when you most need silence. It doesn't try to destroy you all at once. It first tries to confuse you, and it is this confusion that distances you from the essential, from my voice. When you begin to doubt what I have already shown you, it is a sign that the enemy whispered louder than he should have. But I always give signs. I always leave a holy discomfort, that unease that doesn't scream, but warns you something is not right. Have you ever noticed how some people and situations seem perfect, but silently drain you? That's evil's disguise, appearing to be a solution while slowly exhausting you. It never comes across as ugly because it knows beauty disarms. It never comes directly because it knows your heart, if it saw the danger, would flee. It dresses in light, presents itself as care, approaches as help. But behind it all, there's an intention to paralyze you, to distance you from your essence. I don't let you see deception so that you live in distrust, but so that you remain awake. There are differences between discerning and judging. Discerning is seeing with the spirit. Judging is reacting with the ego. Discernment preserves you. Judgment closes you off. And I want you protected, not hardened. Therefore, when I take someone from your life unexpectedly, don't complain. Just give thanks. I saw what you didn't yet see. I heard conversations you would never hear. And before the deception became a snare, I cut the thread. The enemy knows your weaknesses, and it is through them that he tries to enter. He takes advantage of your needs, your fears, your desire to be loved. That is how he creates false bridges. He makes emotional promises he cannot keep. Therefore, I ask you, do not accept everything that comes with an appearance of good. Test the spirits, observe the fruits. What comes from me brings peace. What comes from him brings unrest. What comes from me strengthens you. What comes from him exhausts you. That is the difference. There are battles that are not won with swords, but with discernment. Your spiritual sensitivity is the shield that heaven has given you. Listen to the intuition I have given you. It is my voice disguised as a premonition. When something seems too good to be true, it is because it is not true. And when your heart loses its peace, it is because I have already left that situation. The presence of peace is my yes, its absence is my no. Remember, the enemy doesn't just want to hurt you, he wants to lead you astray. He doesn't need to destroy you to defeat you, he just needs to distract you. And he does this by offering shortcuts. Therefore, don't rush to accept everything that comes quickly. What comes from me doesn't compete, it completes. It doesn't rush, it matures. It doesn't demand your desperate attention, it only calls you to a path of truth. I protect you even from your desires. There are requests I don't grant, not because I don't love you, but because I know that what shines too brightly can also blind. My protection sometimes seems like denial, but it is salvation. I prefer to see you frustrated for a while than wounded forever. Trust in that. I protect you even when you don't realize it. You need not fear deception when you learn to recognize the true light. The light that comes from me never confuses, never demands, never manipulates. It simply illuminates. When I am present, your spirit feels relief, not constriction. And every time you doubt, return to the place of peace. There I await you. Share this message with someone who needs to wake up to the deceitful disguise. Discernment is the shield I place in the hands of my children so that they may walk safely amidst what the world disguises as light. It is not fear, it is vision. It is not distrust, it is wisdom. It is the ability to perceive what belongs to me and what only pretends to come from me. Many ask for protection, but few ask for discernment. And discernment is the deepest form of protection because it delivers you before evil happens. I give you eyes that see beyond appearances. You look and see beauty, but the spirit feels what words cannot say. Learn to listen to that gentle touch in your heart. It is my warning disguised as intuition. It is the voice of the spirit telling you, not here. There are battles you have won because you obeyed that whisper, and there are pains you have felt because you ignored it. But even so, I have taught you. Every mistake was a lesson to strengthen your discernment. Discerning is not judging. Judging is looking with the ego. Discerning is looking with the spirit. When you judge, you distance yourself. When you discern, you protect yourself. And I want you to learn to protect yourself without hardening yourself. Because discernment is also love. It allows you to see the truth and still pray for the other. It is the shield that does not wound, only preserves. It is the sword that cuts the bond, but does not destroy the knot of compassion. I gave you this gift so that you wouldn't be swayed by any appearance of kindness. There are smiles that hide manipulation, sweet words that carry ulterior motives, invitations that aren't doors, but traps. And when you learn to discern, the enemy loses the power to deceive you. He may even approach, but he finds no more room. You become protected ground, holy territory. There will be times when you will feel that something is wrong, even without knowing why. This discomfort is the spirit holding you back. Do not silence it by trying to be rational. Discernment speaks in the language of the invisible, and if you ignore it, it falls silent. Learn to trust this divine sense, for it is the most silent form of my care. Your safety lies not in predicting, but in perceiving. You asked me to protect you from enemies, but I also want to protect you from distractions. Because not everything that glitters blesses you. Sometimes it's just the reflection of a well-polished trap. Discernment allows you to distinguish between opportunity and temptation, between path and detour, between promise and illusion. It is what keeps your soul whole while the world tries to divide you. Discernment is knowing when to stay and when to leave. It is knowing when to speak and when silence is prayer. It is feeling that something is dying and yet trusting that it is my plan. Discernment connects you to the rhythm of heaven, makes your heart beat to the beat of my will. It is the unseen shield that evil recognizes from afar. Each time you grow spiritually, the enemy changes his strategy. And that is why I give you more discernment. The more light there is in you, the more subtle the shadows around you become. But do not fear. Your mature discernment is an invisible wall. It does not isolate you. It shields you. You can walk among wolves and remain intact because your eyes are anointed to see what ordinary eyes cannot see. This wisdom doesn't come from books. It comes from being with me. The closer you draw to my presence, the clearer the difference becomes between what is mine and what is a disguise. The light of discernment is a fruit of intimacy. It is born in prayer, grows in silence, and blossoms in obedience. Let discernment become your spiritual instinct. Let it be your filter in every decision, your protection in every step. And when the world tells you that you are exaggerating, remember, those who walk in the light do not need to justify their caution. Just keep going strong, with an attentive heart and a peaceful soul. If you want discernment, confirm with an amen and like this video as a prophetic act. Now that your freedom has blossomed, it's time to understand that it doesn't end with you. The light that set you free wasn't lit merely to dispel your darkness, but so that others could see the path through it. What I did in you is not just a testimony, it's guidance. The healing that reached you is not destiny, it's a beginning. You were set free to set free, healed to comfort, restored to rebuild. Do you remember when I freed you from the emotional prison you called love? Do you remember the desert that seemed like punishment, but was actually a school? None of that was wasted. Every tear shed became healing oil for others. What was once pain is now language. And it is through this language that I will reach hearts that are still where you once were. There are people today who are living through what I freed you from, and they need to see that there is a way out. You are living proof that the end is not the end. That escape can become a new beginning. That silence can transform into a voice. I chose you not because you were the strongest, but because you were the most sincere, and sincerity is the fertile ground where truth flourishes. What I did in you will be a channel of hope for those who no longer believe. Do not keep what you have received to yourself. Light only fulfills its purpose when it spreads. Every time you share your story, you open windows for my love to enter homes that are still dark. It's not about exposing your wounds, it's about showing the power that healed them. When you speak of what I have done, the heavens move. The words that come out of your mouth are not just memories, they are seeds. And every seed that falls on fertile ground transforms into liberation for another heart. To be free is to bear responsibility, not the weight of burden, but the responsibility of conscience. The freedom that comes from me is not an escape from the past, it is reconciliation with it. You don't need to forget what happened, you only need to remember without pain. And when that happens, history gains power. Each memory ceases to be a wound and becomes an instrument. What once humiliated you now honors you, because it shows the strength of my grace in action. What I did in you was a silent miracle, and silent miracles are the most profound. They don't need a stage, they need testimony. And your testimony will be the beacon that guides many who still walk blindly. Do not be afraid to speak of what you have experienced, because when you share, I myself review your words with authority. Your "I have overcome" heals more than you imagine. You were saved to save others, and there is no greater joy than seeing others find in you the reflection of my presence. That is why I do not erase the scars. They are maps that show where you found me. Each mark of yours is a reminder that grace has a specific address. When you look back, you will not see pain, you will see direction. Don't hide, don't be silent. Shame is the enemy's last trick to silence you. But shame doesn't suit those who have been forgiven. Speak, sing, write, pray, embrace. There are many ways to be light. Liberation expands when love finds expression. And every time you act in love, the shadow dissipates a little more in the world. Freed, you are now a bridge between those who are still imprisoned and those who have already understood the value of freedom, between despair and hope, between fear and faith. Your life becomes a path, and each step you take opens trails for others to follow. That is the beauty of redemption, transforming survivors into guides, the wounded into healers, the fallen into support for others. True freedom is contagious. It doesn't need to be imposed. It simply needs to be lived. May your peace become evident, your smile a message, your gaze communicate what words cannot. And when someone approaches asking, "How did you do it?" simply answer, "It was God." These two words carry more power than any speech. Share this warning with anyone who still confuses affection with imprisonment. The time for restitution has arrived. I have prepared you not only to receive something new, but to recover what time, losses, and wounds have tried to steal. I do not replace, I restore. I do not deliver copies, I deliver originals reconstructed by my own hands. What is coming will not come to fill the void, it will come to give it meaning. You thought I would only close a wound, but I am transforming the scar into a sign of victory. You went through a time when everything seemed to be ripped away. People, opportunities, plans, feelings, and when you looked back, you saw traces of something that was gone. But I never let the end be definitive. While you cried for what you lost, I worked so that none of your pain would be wasted. Each of your tears fell on fertile ground, and now that ground begins to flourish. Restitution is different from replacement. To replace is to exchange the old for the new. To restore is to return with multiplication. I don't take something away to put another identical one in its place. I return it better, stronger, more mature. Everything that hurt you will be transformed into a source of learning and grace. What once shamed you will become a source of honor. I restore not only what was lost, but what was dreamed of and postponed. You look to the past and still see ruins, but I already see foundations. The house that collapsed was fragile. The one I am building in its place will withstand everything. You called pruning a loss, but the gardener knows, where there was cutting, growth will come. And the growth that comes will be different, because now you know the value of roots. What was once immature will now flourish with depth. The love that will come will not be a replacement, but a mirror of healing. It will not come to repeat patterns, but to confirm promises. It will not demand anything that exhausts you, but will add peace. Restoration in love will come with reciprocity. Restoration in the soul will come with purpose. Restoration on your path will come with direction. What once confused you will now align you. And every piece of your yesterday will find meaning in the tomorrow that I have prepared. I didn't leave you with nothing. I prepared you to receive everything. The waiting shaped you, the silence matured you, and the losses made room for what is true. You thought you were starting over from scratch, but you are starting over from what is already mature. What comes is not what you hastily asked for, but what has always belonged to you, kept for the right time. Restoration is not just material, it's emotional, spiritual, internal. I am giving you back your confidence, your hope, the sparkle in your eyes, your love for life. I am rebuilding your invisible structures. You will feel capable of dreaming again, and this time without fear. Because now you know that what is mine is not lost, it only matures. I did not erase your story, I rewrote it. And each chapter that shamed you will become part of the testimony that will bring healing to others. Shame will become courage, failure will become wisdom, and the desert will become harvest territory. The time of restitution is also the time of revelation. Now you will clearly see the reason for each weight, each tear, and each pause. And when everything starts to bloom again, don't think it was luck. Recognize that it was purpose. What the enemy tried to use to diminish you, I used to elevate you. And what made you cry will be remembered with gratitude, because it was the beginning of your new harvest. Remember this, nothing was in vain. The love that left, the dream that shattered, the door that closed it, was all just preparation for this time. I didn't come to return it the same, I came to return it complete. And when you look around and realize that everything is different, you will know that it wasn't a replacement, it was restitution. If you believe in restitution, continue, There are more revelations prepared for you. I saw how many times you accepted crumbs of affection, believing it was love. I saw when you struggled to be noticed, when you dimmed your light so as not to bother anyone, when you silenced your truth to be accepted. Your heart grew accustomed to almost loved, almost chosen, almost enough. But the time of almost is over. The love that comes from me is whole, and everything that is whole cannot be contained in halves. I saw you trying to fix what hurt you, insisting on places that no longer contained your essence. And when human love failed, you began to believe the problem was yours. But true love doesn't humiliate. It doesn't ask you to erase yourself to fit in. It doesn't feed on your neediness, but on your purpose. That's why now I teach you to love again, this time with a healed heart. What will come will not make you beg. It will make you blossom. You will no longer be merely loved, because I have prepared you to experience loves that do not require you to lose your identity. The love I send does not come to complete what you lack, but to add to what already exists. It will recognize you, not confuse you. It will lift you up, not drain you. It will come with the same balance with which I loved you, firm, serene, constant. The time when you needed to be useful to be loved is over. I love you for who you are, not for what you do. And it is with this love that I am rebuilding your way of loving and being loved. You were created for reciprocal exchanges, for mature affections, for alliances that build up. The past pain taught you the value of genuine presence, and that is why the new life I send will be pure, without noise, without shadow, without fear. I know you still look back and wonder if it will ever be possible to trust again. And I tell you, yes, but not because the world has changed, but because I have transformed your heart. Now, you will love without self-annihilation, and you will allow yourself to be loved without distrust. No more half-hearted loves, nor shallow promises. What is to come will bring peace, and peace is the seal of my will. The human love that hurt you showed you the limits of your surrender, but it also revealed the depth of what you can feel. I don't want you to erase that. I want you to redirect it. The love that will come will mirror what I planted in you. It will not fear you. It will admire you. It will not compete with you. It will add to you. It will not make you wait for attention. It will offer you presence. And before that love comes from the outside, it already begins within. You will love yourself with the same tenderness with which I loved you. You will look at yourself with respect, speak to yourself with patience, forgive your mistakes with mercy. This is the purest form of love, when you learn to see yourself with my eyes. Because when you accept yourself as I created you, you become whole, and whole beings only attract whole beings. The loves that come from me don't begin in need, they begin in overflowing. They are encounters of whole souls that don't complete each other, but recognize each other. And when that encounter happens, you will know. There will be peace, there will be lightness, and your heart will not feel rushed. Because mature love doesn't cause anxiety, it causes rest. It doesn't divert you from your mission, it propels you towards it. I'm not bringing you someone to rescue you, I'm bringing someone to walk beside you. You will no longer be merely loved, because you have been prepared to experience love fully. The same love that enabled you to endure pain now makes you ready to experience joy. Comment: I receive the fullness of God. My son, my daughter, whoever learns to listen to my voice will never be lost again. The world speaks loudly. The promises sound beautiful. Opportunities multiply before your eyes, but not everything that glitters comes from me. There are paths that seem right, but hide traps. There are sweet words that do not nourish, only distract. Therefore, I teach you to recognize the sound of heaven amidst the noise of the earth. Whoever listens to me walks in peace, even when the path seems uncertain. Deception is subtle. It presents itself as opportunity, as haste, as necessity. It tells you, if you don't go now, you will lose everything. But I do not work with fear. I work with certainty. What is mine does not demand despair. When the time is right, you will not need to run. Things will come to you. Therefore, close your ears to the voices that push you and open your heart to the voice that guides you. I do not speak to confuse, I speak to confirm. Learn to distinguish the tone of my voice. It never blames you, only corrects you with love. It never pressures you, only guides you. It never shames you, only awakens you. My voice brings relief, never anxiety. Where there is fear, I am not. Where there is peace, it is a sign of my presence. This is the secret to not being deceived. Listen with your heart and not just with your ears. You were created to recognize my voice. Even before you were born, your soul already listened to me. When I speak to you, your spirit reacts. Sometimes you call it a premonition. I call it protection. Other times you say, I felt something different. I say, I was warning you. Learn to trust in this attunement, because it is in it that deception loses its power. I know you've been hurt by false voices. They promised you love and gave you manipulation. They said it was care, but they controlled you. They spoke in God's name, but used my name to hurt. And because of that, you began to doubt even me. But I tell you, cleanse your spiritual ears, because I still speak to you. Pain will no longer be noise between us. The time of fear is over. When deception comes, it will try to imitate what is true. It will try to convince you with urgency, brilliance, and the right words. But what is mine needs no proof. What comes from me does not compete. It reveals itself in time. If you are in a hurry, observe. The enemy always hurries you. I always prepare you. If it brings confusion, observe. The enemy creates chaos. I organize. Your discernment does not come from effort. It comes from intimacy. Listen, I haven't just given you ears, I've given you sensitivity. When your spirit is attuned to me, you will recognize the false before it presents itself. You will feel the absence of peace, and that will be your warning. When that absence comes, stop. Don't advance. Your obedience is your shield. The devil deceives those who want to act on their own, but those who learn to wait for me are unreachable. Those who listen to me will not stumble over the same mistake twice. You have already learned the bitter taste of deception. Now you will learn the sweet taste of clarity. The time when you needed visible signs is over. I speak to you from within, and what comes from within is clearer than any external evidence. The coincidences that surround you, the whispers in your mind, the verse that appears exactly when you need it, none of this is by chance. It is I, reminding you that I still walk with you. Guard your mind and your heart. Don't let the noise of the world take the place of my voice. The secret is not in speaking a lot, but in listening well. Silence the thoughts that rush you, and you will hear me again. The Father's voice is calm but firm. It doesn't compete with fear, it drives it out. And every time you hear it, remember, it is love guiding you, not reason controlling you. From this day forward, you choose to listen attentively. I whisper within you, in the spaces between your thoughts, in the intervals between one sigh and another. What I say, keep it to yourself. What I keep silent about, wait for it. Because whoever listens to me will never be deceived, neither by others nor by themselves. like if you choose to continue listening only to my voice. Not every embrace comes from the light. Evil too can extend its arms and present itself as comfort. It arrives with the scent of care, with a calm voice, with words that seem like affection, but the touch doesn't heal, it drains. The gaze doesn't welcome, it judges. Evil has learned to smile to be accepted, to disguise itself as kindness, to enter through the doors of trust. And that is why I teach you to discern even what seems like love. There are hearts that draw near not to share, but to drain what shines within you. They perceive your light and desire to possess it. They call this affection, but the true name is control. They say they care, but they want dominance. They say they protect you, but they imprison you. Evil has learned to speak the language of love, to deceive pure hearts. That is why I, who see the invisible, must warn you. Not every touch is a blessing, nor is every presence a cure. You felt this before, that strange feeling, even when someone treated you well. The body present, but the spirit restless. The smile before you, but the weight in the air. That unease was me warning you, be careful. Evil doesn't confront you head-on. It approaches slowly, gently, until you lower your guard. When vigilance sleeps, deception grows. And that's why I ask you, don't decide only by what you feel. Consult what I say within you. The enemy doesn't destroy suddenly. He seduces first. He offers what you want to hear, what your weary heart desires. He knows that after so much pain, what you most desire is rest, and he disguises himself as rest. But observe, what comes from me calms, what comes from him numbs. What comes from me heals, what comes from him masks. True love makes you breathe, false love makes you dependent. Evil can also embrace, and that is the most dangerous deception, when poison comes mixed with tenderness. That is why I tell you, learn to observe what each presence awakens in you. If after the encounter you feel drained, it is not love. If peace goes away when the person arrives, it is not care. If you need to be silent to be accepted, it is not alliance, it is prison. I love you too much to let you fall into the same cycle. That's why I teach you to recognize the touch of heaven. The touch that comes from me liberates you. It doesn't bind you. It makes you grow. It doesn't diminish you. The touch of light doesn't ask you to extinguish yourself. It ignites what was sleeping. It doesn't demand anything from you. It inspires you. It doesn't control you. It guides you. That's how you know. The love that comes from me brings you closer to who you are. The love that comes from evil makes you forget who you were. Don't blame yourself for trusting the disguise. I don't reprimand you for loving wrongly. I restore you for loving too much. Naivete is the price of purity, but it will no longer be your downfall. I will transform your sensitivity into wisdom. What once hurt you will now protect you. You will recognize intentions before they are revealed, and what once deceived you will no longer deceive you. You don't need to distrust everyone. Just listen to the voice that guides you. Discernment is the filter that separates the comforting touch from the consuming touch. And every time evil tries to approach, your soul will feel the warning. It is this holy discomfort that preserves your boundaries and guards your heart. Do not fear deception. Fear only ignoring my voice. For as long as you listen to me, nothing hidden can reach you. I protect you even from that which you seem to desire. And what today seems like loss will reveal itself as deliverance tomorrow. Comment 7,777. It's the sign of someone who chooses to discern true love. I saw every tear that fell and heard every word you lacked the strength to say. I saw your weary body, your heavy heart, and the silence that seemed endless. You thought I was distant, that nothing was happening while you cried. But it was precisely at that moment that heaven moved most for you. While you crumbled in pain, I rose up in battle on your behalf. You didn't realize it, but there were dangers approaching that were stopped before they even arose. There were words that didn't reach your ears because I silenced them. There were decisions you didn't make because I made you hesitate at the right time. There were paths that seemed like good ideas, but I let you grow weary so you wouldn't follow them. Every delay was a deliverance, every silence a shield. I was there, not freeing you from pain, but freeing you through it. While you wept, I watched over you. When you thought the world had forgotten you, the whole sky spoke your name. I saw the enemy's attempts to turn your weakness into despair, and every time you thought of stopping, my hand sustained you. You didn't see it, but the air that continued to enter your lungs was proof that there was still purpose. Even with a broken heart, you breathed, and each breath was the sound of my promise saying, "It's not over yet." Your tears were a prayer. You didn't need to formulate sentences because your tears already said everything I needed to hear. Heaven understands the language of tears. In them are the most sincere requests. While you were bent over in pain, angels moved, doors closed to protect you, people were kept away, paths were redirected. You didn't see what I prevented, because true deliverance is that which happens before the danger reveals itself. There were days when your pillow was your only confidant, and even there I was. I wiped away the tears that no one saw, and I placed a purpose in each one. Nothing you cried was in vain. Your tears watered the soil where your harvest now begins to grow. What was despair will be transformed into testimony. What seemed like weakness will be remembered as the time when my strength was perfected in you. I didn't waste a single second of your pain. I used every moment to prepare for what was to come. While you cried for what was gone, I prepared for what was to come. While you lamented what hurt you, I healed the wound from within. While you asked me to explain, I silently freed you. Because love doesn't always need to speak. Sometimes it simply acts. And that's what I did. I acted. Now, looking back, you will begin to realize how many times things could have gone wrong, and for some reason didn't. That reason is me. The delays that frustrated you were invisible walls. The people who left you were doors that my love closed. The time when you thought you were standing still was the time when the sky moved with greater force. Don't think that crying was a sign of defeat. It was a sign that there was still life within you. Pain was never the end. It was merely the way I used to reposition you. Each of your tears was a drop of trust placed in me, and now I return it in the form of peace. What once made you bow down now teaches you to stand tall. Heaven moved for you when you had no strength. The deliverance you received was not due to merit, but to love. Because I love you more than you can imagine, and even when you don't ask, I continue to watch over you. You were not forgotten, you were protected. And what the enemy intended to use to destroy you became the stage for your rebirth. Share this message. Someone needs to know that God saved him through tears. You said, "God, where are you? Why are you silent when I most need to hear you?" And I heard you. Every word that came out of your mouth in despair, every silent thought that fear whispered, every time you called upon me and received only the echo of your own cry, I was there. The absence you felt was merely my way of teaching you to recognize me without depending on signs. I was not far away. I simply changed the way I was near. There are times when the noise of emotions is so loud that if I spoke, you wouldn't understand. So I choose silence, because there are truths that only a mature heart can understand. While you wondered if I had abandoned you, I was simply waiting for the time when you would stop looking for me outside and begin to recognize me within. The absence that wounded you was the space where your faith learned to breathe on its own. You wanted answers, I offered you maturity. You wanted signs, I gave you roots. What you called delay was the time that heaven used to solidify your spirit. I did not deny you help. I only taught you to hear the sound of my presence in the silence. You didn't understand, but I was in everything, in the tiredness that made you stop before making a mistake, in the delay that prevented you from encountering what would destroy you, in the no that frustrated you but saved you, in the friend who drifted away but left you room to grow. In every apparent loss, there was an invisible movement of my hand, and while you lamented the absence, I was shaping you from within. My presence is not always warmth and emotion. Sometimes it is a felt but real absence. I am the wind you do not see, but you feel the breeze. I am the sound you do not hear, but you perceive in the peace that remains. When nothing seems to happen, that is when I act most, because my way of acting is not spectacle, it is essence, and what is essential does not need to be seen to be true. You thought I had abandoned you, but it was you who needed to rediscover yourself. Absence was the mirror where you saw your own spiritual reflection. It was the time when you learned to walk by faith, not by emotion. Before, you believed when you felt. Now, you believe even without feeling. And that is what matures the love between us. I allowed you silence because I knew it would be the fertile ground for your new beginning. If I had answered you in haste, you would have returned to depending on my voice and not my presence. And I wanted more than a follower of signs. I wanted a son, a daughter who would recognize me even when all was silent. Today, you already know that silence is not punishment, it's an invitation. It's in the emptiness that you remember what's essential. It's when nothing seems to move that you realize how much you trust. And it's in this silent trust that your soul finally rests. I never distanced myself. I only led you to a place where you no longer needed proof. The absence you felt was the refuge where your faith matured. It was the desert where your voice was transformed into prayer. It was the darkness where you learned to distinguish the light. Now, when I speak again, you will hear differently, not as one seeking help, but as one recognizing an old friend. And when you remember the time you thought I had left you, smile, because that was the time we were closest. The silence was my embrace in the form of waiting, and the absence was just presence in another language. You were sustained the whole time, you just didn't know how much. If this silence has helped you understand my love, keep this peace as proof of my presence. Do you remember what broke you? That phase when the ground opened up beneath your feet and your heart no longer knew where to anchor itself? I was there. I saw the exact moment when hope seemed to crumble, and yet I kept you breathing. None of that was in vain. Every pain that wounded you was being transformed, drop by drop, into fuel for the miracle that is now approaching. What hurt you will be the same thing that reveals it to you. What you called the end was merely the ground being prepared. No wound was wasted. I used your tears as seed, and now the harvest is beginning to sprout. You were wounded to understand what healing is, and you were stripped bare to learn what wholeness is. I allowed certain things to break because what I was building wouldn't fit into the old molds. The pain you thought was destroying you was the hammer with which I was shaping you. What once paralyzed you will now be your testimony. You will see people being healed by the same kind of wound that once almost killed you. And when they ask you how you did it, you will smile and say, I just persevered. What was a scar will be a map for others who are still walking through the valley you have already crossed. Nothing you suffered was without purpose. Every tear was a tool, every loss a brick, every silence a foundation. What hurt you taught you to love more deeply. You learned to respect the pain of others because you knew your own. You learned to speak tenderly because you know how much silence can hurt. Your empathy was born from your own history, and that is why your love now has weight, truth, substance. I didn't want you to suffer, but I used suffering to refine you into purity. The miracle will not only be what I will do outside, but what I have already done inside. Before healing the landscape, I healed your gaze. The same place where you wept will now be the place where I will exalt you. The same name that wounded you will be the name that, when mentioned, will remind you of my justice. The same time that seemed wasted will be remembered as the time when everything began to flourish. I didn't hurt you, I refined you. Pain passed through you, but it didn't destroy you. It revealed you. And what the enemy tried to use to take you off course, I used to reposition you at the center of your purpose. Nothing escaped my control, not even the days when you no longer believed in me. While you doubted, I was already writing the ending of your story with the ink of miracles. Now look at yourself. What was once a wound is now a testament. The shame you carried no longer defines you. It has transformed into strength. You no longer speak of your story with fear, but with authority, because you discovered that the broken pieces formed the most beautiful mosaic I have ever created in someone. The pain did not deform you. It merely exposed the design that was hidden beneath the layers of your self-defense. The miracle that is coming will be so precise that even the parts you thought were lost will fit together. You will see the sky stitching your story together like someone joining light and shadow to create depth. What seems confusing today will be poetry tomorrow. I did not erase your past. I transformed it into revelation. Every why will be answered with a, it was worth it. You will not be remembered for the wound, but for overcoming it. And you will not need to prove anything to anyone. Your own peace will be the testimony. I made you go through this so that now you can look back and say, what hurt me became a miracle. Prepare your heart. The time for weeping is over. What was hidden is about to be revealed, and all will see what I have done with you. When they ask you how you managed to get up, just point to the sky and say, he transformed pain into promise. The wound was the beginning of the miracle. You will not be the same, because nothing that passes through the fire of divine love comes out unchanged. You were broken to be multiplied. Now you are a new vessel, full of purpose, full of light. If you believe that God will transform your pain into a miracle, enjoy it and follow along. The new has already begun. You believed the story had stopped when love was gone, but I was merely changing the scenery. What you called the end was the necessary interval to heal your heart and teach you to recognize what is true. I allowed doors to close so that you would stop confusing intensity with purpose, presence with communion, promise with covenant. The love I prepare for you is not born from the fear of being alone, but from the overflowing of one who has learned to live in me. I watched you collect, almost loved, almost chosen, almost enough. I saw the nights you tried to hold on to what slipped through your hands, and I saw when the silence weighed like a stone on your chest. None of that was punishment. It was refinement. I removed what was fragile so that your heart wouldn't rise again on sand. I taught you to breathe without crutches, to pray without an audience, to be whole without guarantees. Now, the love that will come will not find open cracks. It will find a prepared home. The love that comes from me doesn't arrive. Like a sweeping storm, it arrives like a breeze that confirms. You will recognize it by the peace that remains when the encounter ends, by the lightness that lingers when words cease, by the respect that guards you when silence speaks. True love doesn't compromise your essence. It sees you, honors you, preserves you. It doesn't displace you from your purpose. It sustains you within it. And when two lives like this meet, there is no rush, there is a journey. I have freed you from the cycle of repetition. You will no longer walk in cycles of euphoria and fall, promises and frustrations. The love I prepare has roots, and roots don't need to be visible to support the tree. It will not ask for performances, it will ask for presence. It will not demand proof, it will offer constancy. It will be shelter on windy days and a horizon on sunny days. And if time gets tough, it will remain, because what is born in me does not learn to flee, it learns to stay. You have been trained to discern the difference between burning passion and warming love. Passion burns quickly, love warms a lifetime. Passion demands, love serves. Passion increases the volume, love sustains the melody. Now that your spiritual ear has matured, you will no longer be carried away by the brilliance of what begins, but by the firmness of what continues. You will not seek fireworks, you will seek the gentle flame that bakes the daily bread. I know that fear still tries to tell you that loving means risking bleeding again. That's why I led you through a desert where I healed memories, redrew boundaries, and aligned desires. You learn to say no to what diminishes you, to interrupt what empties you, to protect what makes you holy. The love I send will not break these boundaries. It will walk within them. It will understand your silences, honor your pauses, celebrate your faith. It will not ask you to trade heaven to buy companionship. This love will bring simple and undeniable signs. There will be prayer before impulse, gratitude before demands, listening before responses. It will help you be better without making you feel less. There will be room for laughter and a place for tears, because the home you build will not be a showcase, it will be a table. And at the table, I will always be the first guest. The alliance I establish is not just between two, it is with me at the center, supporting both ends. I also prepared you to remain when the seasons change. Love is not just celebrating spring, it's tending the garden in winter, watering when the sky doesn't rain, pruning when it grows crooked. The love I send will know how to navigate the phases without losing its commitment. When weariness comes, you will have prayer. When doubt comes, you will have counsel from above. When noise comes, you will have healing silence. And when the world clamors for spectacle, you will choose depth. Do not fear the memories of what hurt. They will not return as ghosts. They will return as landmarks. Each scar will remind you of how much you were protected, how much you learned to discern, how much you now know how to say yes truthfully and no respectfully. Your past will not be a shadow over the new. It will be a manual of wisdom. You will not approach out of neediness. You will approach out of calling. And whoever comes will come whole, because they will recognize in you what I planted. Prepare the house. Open the windows of habit to let in the ventilation of hope. Set the table for conversations. Set aside space for shared prayers. Reserve corners for laughter and shelves for dreams. The love I send thrives on good routine, beautiful constancy, small gestures repeated with reverence. It flourishes in the everyday, in the careful use of words, in including others in your plans, and in including me in all plans. When that love arrives, you won't feel the need to explain yourself. Peace will speak for you. There will be care that doesn't invade, closeness that doesn't suffocate, admiration that doesn't control, and you who have already known the hardship of being less to fit in, will experience the lightness of being more to add. You will see how two stories can move forward without trampling each other, how two vocations can serve without competing, how two hearts can harbor the same fire without burning out. I repeat, I prepared you for a love that endures, not for a screen romance, but for an altar covenant. Not for a series of promises, but for a pact of walking together. What comes is affirmation, not performance. It is a shared vocation, not a conquered audience. And when the difficult days come, because they will, you will remember that you were formed in the desert, and the desert teaches you how to cross it. And if fear still visits you at night, breathe and remember what I told your heart. It is not replacement, it is restitution. It is not an improvised plot. It is a chapter written before you were born. It is not belated help. It is a promise, with an exact date in my time. Receive this certainty. I did not make you wait to frustrate you, but to preserve you. What I delayed bringing is what is not lost when the wind changes. Now, move forward lightly. Trust the rhythm I gave you, the discernment I nurtured within you, the rest I placed on your shoulders. You won't need to chase after what is yours. You will simply remain available. Love will find the door open because your inner home is finally ready. And when it lands, it will remain not by force, but by conviction. Comment, I await the love that comes from God. Take a deep breath. Feel the air entering your lungs, life pulsing again in every cell of your body. I am here, and everything you have lived through until now, every tear, every silence, every loss, and every new beginning was part of a story that doesn't end, but renews itself. You have arrived here lighter, more awake, more whole. The pain didn't break you, it opened you up. And what I planted within you now begins to bloom. You have passed through deserts that taught you to walk even without seeing the end of the road. You learned to trust even without understanding, to wait without complaining, to worship even without feeling. It was there, in the midst of the aridity, that your spirit was strengthened. Each time you said, I can't take it anymore, and yet continued, a seed was sown in the soil of your faith. Today, those seeds sprout, and what sprouts is no longer the same as before. It is the new self within you. The time of wounds has passed. What once made you cry now teaches you to smile with maturity. What made you afraid now invites you to be courageous. I didn't bring you here to repeat stories, but to begin new chapters. What's coming is a time of harvest, of fullness, of manifested purpose. And the most beautiful thing is that nothing you've lived through has been wasted. Everything was raw material for what is yet to be born. Look within yourself. Do you perceive the peace? This serenity is the sign that the process is complete. You were broken, shaped, and remade, and now your soul is ready to live without the weight of the past. I taught you that you no longer need to control the future. Now your role is simply to breathe and move on, because what comes will not require effort, but presence. My grace will do the work that your strength could never accomplish. There's a lightness that begins to envelop you. It's the rest that comes after the storm, the calm of those who trust. You are at the beginning of a new time, a time where there's no need to rush because everything will come at the right pace. I am ahead of you, preparing encounters, opening paths, inspiring decisions. And even if there are still uncertainties, you already know the secret. You lack nothing when you have me. I am now guiding you on a path that is not measured by haste, but by peace. Your new story is not born in noise, but in stillness. It is a life of balance, gratitude, and awareness. You will learn to value the simple things, to see the sacred in the everyday, to recognize my presence in small gestures. The miracle that is coming will not be an event, but a way of life. You will experience miracles every day in conversations, in pauses, in breaths. You have been healed of the need to be seen, and now you will learn to be a channel. My light will flow through you to reach others. What was once pain will now be living word. What was once loss will now be ministry. And the love I have placed in you will be a bridge between heaven and earth. You are no longer just someone who believes, you are someone who reflects. But before we continue, I want you to know, nothing that comes will be burdensome, because what will sustain you will no longer be effort, but the flow. The love that will come will not demand. The mission I entrust to you will not tire you. Everything I give you will be in harmony with who you are. Life in me does not weigh you down, it only expands. And you will begin to understand that growing is not about carrying more, but about letting go of what does not belong. You will be surprised by reunions, blessings, and answers that will seem new, but have always been reserved. I am not returning you to the starting point. I am launching you further into fertile ground where everything you plant will bear fruit. The time for surviving is over. Now is the time to flourish. And when you look back, you'll realize that everything fell into place. The losses you mourned created space. The pauses that frustrated you were a time of preparation. The people who drifted away simply made room for those who will accompany you into the new. And you will say, with a heart full of peace, God was always here. Now take another deep breath. Feel the air, feel the presence, feel the promise fulfilled. Heaven doesn't ask you to hurry, it asks you to surrender. Walk lightly, because what comes is too beautiful to be lived with fear. The new beginning is not a period, it's a comma. It's the breath between one chapter and another. This is the beginning of a time of abundance, of lightness, of love that endures, of peace that is independent, of faith that does not waver. You were prepared to live this, so don't look back with longing for what has passed. Look ahead with curiosity for what is to come, because what heaven writes does not end, it is renewed. And before you close your eyes tonight, remember, I am in the breath that keeps you alive. Every breath is a reminder that there is still purpose. So take a deep breath. This is just the beginning of the extraordinary I have prepared for you. Take another deep breath. This is just the beginning of something extraordinary.